I
you
brought
get
some.
just a
I
little
brought
crunchy
something.
snack to start. Yeah.
Wait, I brought something funny,
crunchiest.
and I think Charlotte's gonna want one. Okay, ready?
Oh, is this your fucking Stanley snack cup? Yeah. Get right
thought
up
it was
close
like
to the mic, Megan.
Yeah.
we
could be an ASMR podcast now if you just
Yeah.
eat your
So I
snack.
have snacks and a beverage while we're filming episode 17.
Are Stanleys still a thing?
I mean, I think kind of, but not like.
My kids think they are, but my husband this morning was like, this is the hardest container to open and close, and I hate it. Can you never bring them in the house again?
Gianna said that her teachers don't like them because they leak.
They do leak.
Not my kids' ones. They have the ones that screw on top with the little thing that you push up.
They're all into is it
Then you
Hydro
gotta-
Flask, right?
Is that the new one?
Awala.
Or the Wallace. Yeah.
Well, joke's on you for hydrating.
Welcome to Just for Moms. I'm Charlotte.
I'm Caitlin.
I'm Megan.
And I'm Callie.
We are regular moms talking about regular stuff
Like aging,
Parenthood,
work-life balance,
and figuring out what's for dinner. Again.
a no judgment zone to talk,
laugh,
And maybe cry about all the things women think about on a daily basis.
Okay, she's quiet. So we're going to. Nope.
She sounds like a tornado siren.
She's
She
really
does.
finding her pipes.
Good
We're
for
just going to
her.
start. We're going to start because that's just part of the ambiance.
Yeah. It's fine.
Yep. Welcome back to Just for Moms, episode 17, right?
Yes.
There is not a tornado about to hit.
I know, guys, that's the dog. I'm confident she will stop barking. She's in a crate. She can't even stand up in her crate because she likes the small one.
I don't know.
I
That
don't.
qualifies as a bark. It is a yowl.
She's
I don't know.
moaning for mommy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll go up and deal in a minute, but she'll like, what is she barking at? She's in a crate. We're just coming back from spring vacation, and this is going to air long after we're back, so I didn't want to get into it too much. But did you guys all have fun? You had a week off. It was nice.
No.
Complaints.
No, it was horrible.
No, Callie?
Callie said no.
No, because you have little kids. Yeah, so they were in preschool. Normal week.
Yeah. No, we were all home because our preschool still observes spring break.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, yes, so fun. I just have more laundry. I mean, it was fine. It was nice. The kids were home and the weather was pretty good, but I just have so much laundry and I'm just feel really out of sorts.
Yeah, because then you had a birthday too.
Yeah, and it was Easter at the end of spring break, so it was just a lot. Yeah.
Well, I had a big birthday too. I turned 50 in the middle of spring break. So no, I didn't celebrate. I went out for dinner. It was fine. Whatever. It is what it is. But I keep telling myself that I want to go away and have like a girls' trip at some point to celebrate my birthday. And, then you start thinking about what does that look like? And my friends are not like a cohesive group. They're very disparate, random individuals that I think would all love each other. But it's not like I get on the group chat and say, hey, guys, what are you up to? It would probably have to be like a long weekend because everyone is a mom or many are moms, so getting away for longer. And then I sort of get in this quagmire of how does this work? How do you plan it? Where would I go? What is the cost? And so that was what my question for you guys was, is that if someone were to say, and P.S., I haven't even thought about like how I'm going to pay for this. It's just like, it's a long weekend. I'll figure something out. So if you could go anywhere or do anything, what is that? Like, help me out. What would you do? Because I've gone through many iterations.
I could answer this immediately. There's somebody sharing their weekend away where she planned an Airbnb and everyone just comes and brings their books that they want to read. And she planned all the meals and I want to show up for that. So I don't want to plan it. I want someone to invite me to a house, preferably like with a nice view where our activities are kind of, you could come, you don't have to come, but there's time every day for you to do whatever you want to do. You want to read, you want to paint, and there's no one interrupting you. I want that.
And then, but where would the house be? Like local? Because these are people coming from all over the country.
Yeah, I guess it would have to be somewhere that everyone could get to. I mean, if you had a cool Airbnb in your town, I feel like you do.
I
Probably
know,
right
but
by
I
the
sort of want to
water.
go to like a beach. I feel like you're right. I need to plan it. So it's just like, here's what we're doing, come. But then do you go to Puerto Rico so you don't have to clear customs? because that's a warm beach and you don't have to have a passport. I love Mexico, but Mexico's a little further away. Like I'm stressing myself out with this and I haven't even started planning.
Do
You
you
just did this
not-
with Megan. How did you do it with your
Yeah,
girlfriends?
I was going to say, do you not want to fly anywhere? Do you want to do like Newport, Rhode Island? That would be fun. There's plenty of Airbnbs there, and you could go out to eat, or you could stay home. So you could do Friday night out to eat, Saturday night stay home, and all venture to the beach one day because it's warm sometimes this time of year.
I know. I personally sort of do want to, because I just went to Newport, but like I sort of want to
Yeah.
go somewhere cool. I even thought about just going somewhere alone. I was like, what
Oh,
if I
that's
just go to
nice.
like the Maldives, like do something really fancy alone?
Yeah.
But
I
what
thought
is-
you just said the mall.
I did
No.
too.
How do you pronounce it? Maldives or Maldives?
Oh,
wrong
yeah,
person
yeah,
to
yeah.
ask.
Isn't
yeah.
that one of those places where you're
Yeah.
just on like a house looking over the beautiful blue water?
Yeah.
Yes. I
I'm
vote for that too.
Yeah. I'm also just, I'm so distracted by the dog. Is it loud in everyone else's ears or is it my headphones making it loud?
She's a little loud. I was kind of looking at your
Okay.
face, Callie,
Sometimes I don't
wondering-
know if it's my headphones that like sometimes
I think
certain
she
things are
stopped.
louder.
She stopped, right?
No,
Yeah.
I'm muted.
Oh,
I just yelled at her. She may be, I mean, do you want to like re-record everything?
no.
No, I don't
think
think we
it's
need
funny.
to.
Mm-mm.
Uh-uh.
I just have I have no control over my giggling about it.
No. Well, she's like in this little, I don't even know what she's barking at.
She'll take a nap.
I love
She
that.
seems quiet now.
For a minute.
Yeah.
She had like ramped up higher. She was like getting louder.
There's probably Amazon or something that she could
Yes.
see.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Um,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I've considered everything. I have a friend who has an apartment in Lisbon, Portugal, and I was like, that would be fun. But then for a long weekend, I feel like that's a waste of a fun trip somewhere that you really want to explore.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's fair. Like I can do that anytime I want. Like as the kids get older, I can just tag out and go. And I don't know. Like
It's hard when there's like no boundary. It's like you can just do whatever. Yeah.
a little bit. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's been my. I'll figure it out by the time I turn like 54, no doubt. But
Sure, definitely.
because I can't do it this spring, so it's definitely going to be an after the fact trip anyway. And then I don't know. The potential for this to be pushed out in eternity is there, but I do want to make it happen. I think girls' trips are really fun.
I think they're important.
Mhm.
Yeah, like what's your favorite thing to do, Charlotte?
I mean, I can sit on a beach and day drink and read a book
Yeah.
a lot. I mean, I love exploring new cities and stuff too, but that feels a little less relaxing. Like if a bunch of girlfriends came together, it might just be easiest and most fun to sit around.
Yeah.
I mean, Florida's super easy.
That's true. The Keys are fun.
Yeah.
I've never been
I feel like you
there.
keep saying beach.
I know.
Yeah.
You need to pick a beach town.
Just
Yeah.
pick a beach.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. All
And
right.
then just do it.
All right, let's move on to mom fails. Looks like 3 of us have mom fails. Megan, do you have a mom fail?
So, yes, it's kind of a lame mom fail, but I got nominated to do that ice bucket challenge that everyone's doing, and I forgot to do it. And I don't know. My kids are doing it with their friends. I don't know. I just like kind of over it because it happened. When
Already.
was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Years, ALS
So,
years ago.
I like my friend was like, you forgot to do it. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So that's
I'll do it.
my fail. I don't know. I should
What
have
I
done
don't
it.
get about them is that they're fun and I guess people are talking about whatever it's meant to support, but it's not like, are you meant to donate money and dump the ice, or are you just meant to dump the ice and tag someone? Because then I don't know. I don't know that. Are we moving the needle on anything?
I just saw somebody share a girl I know who's in college, and it's six things you're supposed to do if you're nominated, and every single video I've seen is not doing any of those things except for tagging the organization. It's mental health awareness, isn't it? And no one's doing anything but being like, I got tagged by my friend.
Yeah.
Where the ALS one, I remember donating. I probably still have my video somewhere, but my friend was riding in an ALS bike charity event. So I donated, and yeah.
I saw even on the news, like the newscasters were doing it, and it's like.
But did they talk about why?
No, they all just dunked each other with ice and water. Yeah. Like Jenna Bush, I saw her do it yesterday, and the whole cast was doing it to each other. I mean, soaked on set. It was pretty funny. But again, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure they donated.
Well, there's still time, but I'm with you. I think I would conveniently forget that too.
Same.
Yeah. I didn't even
Mhm.
know it was going around again.
I only know because I have a lot of my nephews in high school, a lot of older girls from dance. They're all doing it. I thought it was dumb.
Callie, Caitlin, do either of you have mom fails?
Not really.
I have a mom fail. So my daughter's preschool does community snack, which is amazing because you don't have to bring snack ever. You don't have to pack a snack ever, but 1 week of the year you're in charge of snack for the whole class. So I had this Monday, which we just discussed was the Monday coming back from spring break, the day after Easter, as well as my son's second birthday. And I wrote out my calendar like 3 times so I wouldn't forget. I forgot community snack. So that's my mom fail.
So they
So
were all
what do you do? Do
starving.
they have extras, or do you have to run out and get?
So she didn't text. I didn't even know that I missed it until the teacher texted me like at lunch. And so I assume because it was like the Monday going back, they probably had like my guess is they usually have Monday snack from like the previous time because you bring the snack at drop off, like they're not going to like organize it all like in that moment. So my guess is that Monday snack is usually taken care of anyways. And she was like, it's not a big deal. Like, just bring it tomorrow. But usually my mom fails are not like planning. And like, that's my one thing that I'm usually pretty good about. So it felt like an extra mom fail.
I was going to say anything with organization, that's usually your sweet spot.
Yeah, not this time around.
I mean, I was just going to really quick interrupt, obviously, to just say I'm just failing at keeping candy away from everyone after Easter because I did not give candy, but there are plenty of other family members who thought it was so cute to give their grandchildren candy and
So much candy.
So much. And she hides it all over the house and then appears with like a box of Nerds. I'm like, I thought I confiscated all of these. How do you have more? So I'm failing at that.
I sort of feel like candy's a rite of passage, but I'm with you. There's so much, and I turn a blind eye for a day or two. I let them just mainline it because then it's gone.
Yeah. Well, we have too much. I mean, I'm the same. Like on Halloween, on Easter, I'm like, you eat the candy at 7 a.m. I don't care. It's Easter. But there was so much came into our house that I'm so overwhelmed. And there's certain people that are like, yes, your 2-year-old needs a full size chocolate bunny.
Yes.
No, I don't. What would I even gonna do? Chop it up? And I don't even know what to do with it. Anyways.
I might need to go deal with this fucking dog. My mom fail, and then I'll go deal with her, is that we went away. We went to see my folks, and there's nothing like fancy per se, but we were definitely like my dad got us tickets to go to see Annie at the theater, and we had my birthday dinner. Like we were definitely going to be out in public. My 8th grade son understands like how the world works. Conveniently forgot to bring anything that was not like shorts. And so at one point thankfully he went into my brother's closet and he had some dress pants, but they're too baggy. So he wore them. But like, at what point do you have to stop reminding your kids to look like presentable humans?
I know. That's so annoying.
So he must have been cold.
That was not my problem. He wouldn't have admitted to that.
Okay,
No.
okay.
It was warm. It was nice when we were there. It was sunny and probably, I don't know, 70s. I feel like he probably had one pair of sweatpants or something, but like, I don't know. The girls all bought dresses and skirts because they are happy to be out and wear party clothes. The boys are just a different story. They don't care.
My son's the same, Charlotte. He would do the same thing. Yeah.
Okay, you talk amongst yourselves. You can keep recording. I'm gonna go deal with the dog.
Okay. I'll tell you guys a story about. I'll never forget when Michael and I started dating young, and we moved in together young, and we went on vacation. No, we didn't go on vacation. When we would go away, like I would pack his shit just because like I was packing my stuff, and I would pack his shit, and like he would just always forget something, or he would do it the morning of, and that would like give me anxiety, so I would do it. And I'll never forget the first time that I was like, I didn't pack his things. We were going to his biological father's funeral, like an important event. We get there, I'm not shitting you, like the hour before it's time to leave for the funeral. He's like, oh, I didn't pack dress socks. I didn't dress shoes, a belt and an undershirt for like the whatever suit. I'm like,
how? I don't understand.
And like he still sometimes to this day, he just thinks like, we'll stop at a store really quick on the way. I'm like, I'm not stopping at Macy's on the way to a wedding so that you can get a shirt. I just don't understand that. Yeah.
our
Yeah.
Easter morning. So I always plan everyone's. That's just me. I have to like put things like Nico's options for the morning were on hanging on his dresser. I told the girls the night before, do you know what you're wearing for church? If I need, do I need to like de-wrinkle it? You know, we have the de-wrinkle setter on the dryer because everyone's always complaining. And I kind of threw a few things out for me just so it's like, because we're not like, it's, you know how it is. The mornings are nuts.
Yeah.
And I always say to Joe, do you know what you're going to wear tomorrow? And he waits till last minute. And then like the shirt he picked out was all wrinkled. His pants had a big hole right like in the ass part. He's like, I don't, my job site pants are the only ones that fit. And then it was like everything was wrinkled. And I was just like, you need to like plan and give it to me so I can de-wrinkle it. Like we can't go to church. You can't go to church like that.
Is this your husband?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. But like the kids, I remind them, and I said to him, same thing. Like, and I'm going to have to do it again because we have Nico's communion on Saturday. I'll be like, do I need to go to the cleaner? Can I throw it in I'm not a morning person where I can like do all that. It's just too much chaos and it's so last minute. So I like, we're walking into Easter and I don't want and I was like, oh my, like, I'm like, there's a hole in your pants, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, and
It's
then,
like you've been alive for 40 years. Like, how do you not know that you can't? It's not going to take 5 minutes to get dressed.
No. Yeah. And like, even with the wrinkle spray, he's spraying it and then like pulling it and then it's blow drying it. And I'm like, we're supposed to be in the car right now, you know?
And isn't this stressful? Like, don't you want to save yourself from this stress? That's what I don't understand. It happens every time and you're stressed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do it the night before for me. And my dress was all wrinkly and I was like fixing it. But then at least it's ready for the morning. Cause I just like, I'm just, again, I can't handle the chaos of
You need to do the metacognition that you do with kids and be like, I'm going to get out my dress tonight because I know tomorrow is going to be really busy and I'm going to spray it with wrinkles because that's planning ahead.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
See if he gets it. No.
Yeah.
My husband's scarred for life because in the beginning, I wouldn't help him pack or whatever. And we would get places and he'd say, oh, I have nothing to wear to do this. And I have nothing to wear to do that. And I'd say, well, that's not my problem here. So now I will give him an itinerary. If this is what's happening, this is how many times we're going to dinner. And if you don't bring those things and I take a photo of you and you don't like what you're wearing, too bad. It's going all over social media. You're wearing a tank top from high school. Like, I don't care.
Oh boy.
I guess the answer is, Charlotte, you said how long until you have to stop telling your son? At some point, it will just transfer to whoever he decides to be with.
Although it won't.
Forget, this is where I do feel like the generations are evident. Like when I was younger, and I suspect many of us, it was like athleisure was not an omnipresent thing.
Yes.
And so you just knew that if you were to go out to dinner, to a restaurant, or I don't know, get on an airplane or the theater, that you would wear just a pair of hard pants, a shirt, maybe a shirt with a collar. Like, I don't need them to have a jacket and tie. God, that would send us back like another month. But just not sweatpants with holes in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is true. That line has gotten really blurred. I remember like the first time that we took my children to an event that was at a church and we had, we got dressed up and my son was like, why are we getting dressed up? And I was like, well, there's certain things. And it was hard to even explain, well, some things we dress nice for. I don't know. But you're right. Like that line is so blurred now.
And it's a little, I guess this sort of segues into our topic a little bit because the idea of how you present yourself, I do think that there's some historic bias that comes with that. Like I remember interviewing at a school to be a sub and they were delighted to tell me that women could now wear pants. So this is a school where women are the teachers of 5, 6, 7, like small children, presumably down on the floor, getting up from the floor, and that they were just having to make do with the skirt. And this was, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years. Like it was not yesterday, but in our lifetime, that is a thing. Mm-hmm. And so the segue to our topic actually came from a listener who messaged us from our website. And she had a couple of different thoughts and questions and suggestions. And this one really resonated with us. And it was the idea of, as moms, what does feminism look like to us? And how do we then talk about it and present it to our kiddos. And both girls and boys, Caitlin, you don't have to worry about presenting feminism to boys, but
My husband.
I think a lot of times the conversation about feminism is it's often just presented as, girl power and raising our girls to be strong. But as a mom to boys, I think it is as important, if not more important, to teach the boys what feminism means. So I'm still out of breath from dragging my dog up to our bedroom where there's another crate she can bark from. So I wanted to quickly give a brief history of feminism. This is not off of my brain. This is from like Wikipedia, but I do think that sometimes it's a loaded word that people naturally sort of object to. But there's been a few waves of feminism. In the early 1900s, that's sort of when the first wave of it was, and that's when women were just literally getting the right to vote. So sort of the suffragette movement. In the 60s, that's when we sort of think about women's lib and legal social equality. That there was another wave then. In the early 1990s, apparently there was a third wave, and this was started by Anita Hill, who was the woman who testified on Capitol Hill. I think she was presenting her testimony in front of an all-white male court about Clarence Thomas, who she had interned for, and that had been pretty icky. And so that was sort of more grounded in the idea that feminism can have sort of more individuality and diversity. And that one was a little bit more vague to me. But then there's sort of a fourth movement that we've all seen more recently, which was sort of the catalyst was more social media and the Me Too movement. And that had a lot more to do with sexual assault and just women having a safe space. And so that's sort of what we've seen as far as feminism over the last century or so. The definition of feminism, which in its raw form is a social, political, and cultural movement that advocates for the equality of all genders, particularly focusing on the rights and opportunities of women. And it's fundamentally rooted in the belief that gender should not determine an individual's rights or opportunities. So it's not like anti-male. It's not saying that men can't do things. It's just saying that women should have the right to do everything that men do. Statistically, women do not make as much money as men. Like, that is not me making it up. And I did fact check that. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as of 2024, women globally earn 83 cents on the dollar. And in the United States, they earn 85 cents or 85% of what men earned. So like, we're not there yet. In 2024, 52 out of the 500 Fortune 500 companies had female CEOs. That's 10%. 26% of the U.S. Senate is women. 28% of the U.S. House is women. It wasn't until 1972 that Title IX was passed, and that was sort of an addition to a bunch of educational amendments that said that as prohibits sex-based discrimination from a school that receives federal funding. So, like, this is our lifetime that all of these things were happening. So it's definitely not something that we fixed and it's all better. So I'm going to stop talking. I certainly have some answers for how feminism is present in our family, but I'm wondering for the three of you, do you talk about feminism? Do you just have it running in the background? Do you not think about it? What does that look like for you guys? I'll start with Caitlin.
For me, okay.
Yeah.
For me, I just want to pull up my notes real quick to make sure I did write some things down because I don't want to repeat myself. So it's funny because when I think about being a girl mom, I just think, okay, I'm a mom of 3 girls. I teach them that they can do whatever they want in their world. That's it. That's just said and done. And we haven't had to really encounter anything where, they saw a boy get to do something over them or something like that until my daughter ran for what was it called? She's
like
in a community
council or something.
Not even student council. It's like a community service club that they're in. And when you're in 4th grade and 5th grade, you can run to do treasurer or whatever, thing like that. And she last year ran for treasurer and she lost to a boy. And I didn't say anything about it. I don't think anything about it, but her little sister said something. And her little sister was like, well, maybe he got it because he's a boy. And Annabelle was like, so? She's like, well, maybe because I don't know, maybe he's better with money than girls are. And I was like, where would you have heard that? She couldn't tell me. She's in first grade, but my middle child is the one who comes up with these outlandish things, or she just picks it up from something she watched in a show or anything. So that kind of led into a conversation of that's not how the world is supposed to work. It might work in some scenarios, but you should never think that you can't do something because it's going up against someone who's a boy or different than you or anything like that. You know, you should just always go for your dreams. And I think them seeing my husband, who's not very like, I am man, hear me roar, kind of helps, because he doesn't, some male girl dads can just act like they're supposed to do everything. And he shows them that, no, it's mommy and daddy do things, like killing a bug. Even I might be the one to kill the bug. I might be the one to fix the dishwasher. So to answer your question, how do I approach it? Not formally, but whenever the occasion strikes and I need to discuss that, you're a girl, you could do whatever you want. Doesn't matter if, anything about that, then that's where we go.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the hardest things about parenting is the parts of it that you're not anticipating. And when it comes to gender roles specifically, which I think is sort of knotted and tied together with the idea of feminism, I mean, all of us grew up in families where they were pretty traditional gender roles. I think all of us, quite honestly, are living in families now where the gender roles are not totally traditional, but they're not traditional. I mean, all of us sort of stayed home to a certain extent to have kids, and we work from home. And I think I read a book years ago that we can, I don't know, share on social, called Cinderella Ate My Daughter. Have you heard of that book? It's a really easy read. It was written by two women who were psychologists, and they adopted a daughter, and they said, we don't want to have any of this gender garbage like creeping in. And so they were like, we're going to try to raise this little girl as gender free as possible, not in a like non-binary way, the way we would talk about it now, but just they're not going to have like princess toys and she said, what I realized is that the idea of gender is not only presented to kids in every way possible, from marketing to media to TV shows to just toys that you see in the grocery store. She said there's part of it that is very innate. There's a time when girls, just no matter what you do, they often do gravitate towards the girliest things they can find because they're trying to sort of establish their gender norms. And again, I'd be interested how some of this may change now that we're talking more about kids that are transgender and non-binary at a young age. A lot of parents will say that their kids who are transgender were just different from the jump. But for kids that identify as, the gender to which they were assigned at birth, they just said there's no way to tease it apart. And so to your point, Caitlin, when you said Annabelle, was it Annabelle that was Eileen's older, right?
No, Annabelle's older.
Oh, so Eileen was saying about like maybe boys are better at math. Like, who knows where she got that? And it's terrifying to think that that's still just in the water, these preconceived notions about men and women and what they can and can't do, because you can obviously talk about it when you hear it, but they're just getting this, which that's where I get sort of discouraged. Callie, your kids are younger. Does this show up at all yet?
Not a ton. I mean, yeah, we're still sort of in the place of like we point things out when like the other day when I say the other day, it was like months ago. You know how you're like the other day? It was like months ago. We were driving and for whatever reason, my son was mentioned that he noticed that all of the babysitters we've ever had are women. And then so he was like, is it only women that could be babysitters? And so, for me, that was just a time when I could be like, you're right. That, that is an interesting thing that you notice, that all of the women we've had are babysitters in general. Most babysitters are women. I mean, statistically they are, but that doesn't mean that a man can't be a babysitter. It's just that there are more women and that's what we've had. So that's sort of how it's come up. He came home from school once. Now that we're into elementary, I feel like we're getting more of this sort of stuff seeping in. Obviously, he's hearing like on the schoolyard, whatever. And I forget, it was maybe it was construction. It was something similar. And he mentioned that more men tend to have that job. And then he immediately, I think it was maybe from the babysitter conversation, was like, it's not that women can't do it, just that more men choose to do it. And so we've sort of just used that time to that's sort of where we are. I mean, we're not in the place of talking about it really super deep. It's just been, I feel like we've had this discussion on multiple other topics of like touching on it as it comes up.
But I love that he's graduated from that's for boys and that's for girls. Like that's not part of his brain.
Not really, no. And I know that he's heard it because we've had those discussions. Like we've had discussions literally about like long hair. You know what I mean? Where he's like, usually women have long hair, but he knows a boy that has long hair. He's like, sometimes boys have, so that's sort of where we are. And I mean, that's kind of how I try to approach it in general, is that like, that maybe is something that boys, like we were painting our nails once. I was painting my nails. Finley wanted to paint her nails. And then Miles wanted to paint his nails. And the discussion came up that typically it's women. We notice that women paint their nails, but sometimes boys do. And if you want to paint your nails, you can paint your nails. Like it came up sort of like that. It's just sort of, we're just observing it. But yeah, I mean, he hasn't really it's never been like, that's just for women. We tend to be like, you're right. I mean, in general, I mean, we had the same discussion like when we talked about modern families, that we've been like, most of the families we know are moms and dads, but that's not how all of the families are. And so we kind of just tried to do it as like an observation-based thing and like look at the things that are the same and look at the things that are different.
But what I love about that, and it gives me hope for this younger generation, is that, I think at its very core, the notion that, there was a reason that we needed to have a feminist movement was because women were othered. They were somehow deemed different, and in that difference, they were also deemed less than. And so there was a point when women had to say, whoa, 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 time out. Not only are we not less than, we are just as capable of and deserving of X, Y, and Z. And so, I think there's always going to be gender differences. And so I'm trying to train my brain not to look at gender differences as like the root of all evils and that, but it's the idea that a difference doesn't have to be a less than or an othering of.
And I think for me, it's always, I mean, I don't ever want to look at differences as a bad thing. And I don't think that necessarily there being differences between men and women. Like, to me, that's not the problem. It's the equality that's the problem. So, I think that there are differences in general. And I think that as I continue to raise my boys and my girls, depending on what differences they have. I mean, I have a boy that's a very sensitive boy, and this is probably a whole nother topic, but I've had multiple people be like, you got to toughen him up, and no, I don't. I mean, why can't we have sensitive men? So, that's a whole nother side of it. But I think it's that same idea still of, as I raise boys and girls, they're going to have differences, whether they're gender specific differences or not. And it's just learning what your differences are, learning how you are as a person, and then following those things that are your, I want to say your pros, but that's not, the qualities of yours that you enjoy, or the qualities of yours that are your strengths, and knowing what your weaknesses are. And that's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah. And I think to backpedal, because I think my words were ahead of my brain. I don't think there's anything wrong in the differences too, but I do think that there was a time when girls were really presented as like, this is what you need to do. Yeah. And for me, that was problematic. And so, the idea of that Cinderella ate my daughter, it wasn't that they didn't want their daughter to have like a gendered world. I just think that they were sort of one step ahead of it. And they wanted this little girl to not feel like she had to fall into whatever at the time was like, oh yeah, that's the girl toy section. That's for you.
Yes.
Megan, how about you? You have girls and boys, so they're older.
Yes. So, Callie, it's funny because in my house, out of all three of my children, the most sensitive one is my son. And same thing. I've gotten that comment so many times, like even from sisters and like he's very sensitive, and I'm like, yeah, that it is what it is. You can't change it, that's who he is.
And I don't think it's bad. I mean, that's what I'm not trying to cut you off, but I hate that people, because he's a boy, that's a bad thing. Like, I think it's a beautiful thing that he can be a sensitive man. Like, I think that's so
the flip side of the girls who are just raging biatches, and everyone's like, oh, she needs to be like calmer, and it's like, no, she's standing up for herself. That's amazing.
No, and it's funny too. So so we have the communion on Saturday, and he's all stressed out because he tried the host during the rehearsal and he hated the way it tasted. Okay. Like, had it came home in tears, and I was like, whoa, like, we don't have to be upset about this. It's okay. And the girls are like, it tastes so good. Like, how do you not like it? And he's like, I don't like the way it tastes. I'm so nervous. And, and we have a rehearsal later on for it. And he's all stressed out about the taste of it. And I would have never thought that would come up, but I'm just like trying to like, you know, and I was telling him this morning at the bus stop, like, it's just kind of like a toast. Like, it's just a toast or a little like a little piece, just put it in and you'll be fine, like I, but so having 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, and I do have to say in today's society, it's definitely changed from the way we grew up, like completely. The corporate work world from when I worked in it, 15 years ago, I felt like all the upper and high level were definitely men. There was a few women. So I feel like today, the way, I raise my kids is just, you can be and do career wise anything you want. You put your mind to it. You can be a CEO of a company. If you want to be a soccer player, if you want to be a fashion designer, you can be the highest level, just put your mind to it, work hard. And I feel like they don't really see those differences too much just because I don't know, it's changed, I feel like, a lot from when we grew up. So, I mean, it's definitely come up here and there with male, female, but, I just reassure them, if one of my girls is like, oh, I shouldn't apply for that job because, a guy has it now. I'd be like, no, you can do a better job than he can do. Apply. So I just keep reassuring and, just telling them to be the best they could be today, in the future. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think in our house, for me, when I think about feminism, it really is like I said before, the othering of women and the insistence that women sort of need to be over in this category. And so there's sort of the natural, like, degendering of things that I try to introduce. So the idea that there's not like a girl job and a boy job. I mean, that would never be my language, but I do think there's preconceptions about it. And that's certainly the way my marriage is. I mean, my husband doesn't use the power tools that I do. And so that's not something we're talking about, but it's something that they're seeing. So hopefully that is showing them that there's not like categories the way I think we grew up with. I certainly don't assume anything about when they get older. I don't assume that they're going to get married. I don't assume that they're going to have kids. I don't assume that they're going to be with someone of the same gender. I certainly love being a mother, and a couple of my kids are already excited about that. And I said, well, if you choose to have kids, I have a bunch of them. I love it. It's been the best thing I've ever done. I don't talk about weight or beauty. I don't talk about sort of the aspirational notion that of like girls needing to be pretty or whatever we sort of grew up with just in the water. I really try to bring in books and characters and movies that have really strong, empowered, forthcoming girls. I think the hardest thing for me with my own kids in particular is when they're asserting themselves and being confrontational, to treat them the same way that I would treat my boys when they're being like assertive and speaking up for themselves. And I find that, it's just subconscious. I sometimes react to it differently, and I have to be like, no, that's like, she's doing a great job. It is real annoying right now, but she is sticking up for herself and she's telling me what she wants, and I just got to go with it.
Well, and I think the one thing too that the listener said at the end, that when we were writing up the notes, that stood out to me that I have thought about a lot, was she was talking about how she has 2 daughters and how her 2 daughters sort of look down on motherhood a little bit, as like not not good enough, and so that narrative worries me a little bit, because I have seen that come out of this. And to me, when I look at motherhood, I mean, motherhood's the strongest thing that I have ever done. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. It has shaped me the most. I'm very proud of my career. I'm proud of what I've done. But to me, it's the best thing that I've ever done. And so the fact that, I want to be careful the way that I talk to my children, that of course you can't do everything. And I do want you to aspire to a career, but that motherhood is not like giving up on that. And this is probably could be its own conversation as well. But I think that there's something you have to be sort of careful with that too. I have a friend who is turning 40 very soon, and she's not married. She wants children. And she talks about it. She was like, I feel like I followed the path that I was supposed to. Everyone said, you're a woman and you can go and you can get a job. And she did. And she got her master's and she has a great job. And she's like, but I wish that I was a mom. And I feel like I've missed my window. And so I feel like there is that piece that's in there a little bit as well, where she did do that. She did whatever she could do. And I think that's just a tricky part of being a woman, is that always juggle of balancing career and motherhood. And so I'm careful not to ever make it look like motherhood is something that you're giving, you do give up something for motherhood, but there is that sort of balance to it as well. And I have seen that more and more. I mean, I'll never forget a conversation I had with my sister-in-law when she had her first child. And she was like, I thought I was going to hate it. And I thought it was going to be horrible because of the narrative that social media makes motherhood, brings about motherhood. And she's like, but this is like great. Like, I love this. I love having my son. And so I worry about that side of it and that piece of it and what, girls are hearing. So, and I thought it was interesting because she was talking about in the viewer question that she was talking about feminism and how she sort of feels a little bummed that her daughters, look at her and her choice to be a mother and stay home, be a mother, and sort of like look down on it.
It's complicated for just what you're saying. It's,
yeah. I do feel like women have been given a little bit of, I don't know the word that I'm looking for. It's like we're told we can do whatever we want to do, that we can aspire to any career. But then once and we've talked about this in past episodes, then we get to the point of being a mother, and we may have to step back from that in order to do that, in order to raise our children, or when they're really little. And so I feel like I haven't decided how I'm going to approach it yet, but I feel like there is this conflicting narrative that we're giving to women.
Well, it's also the idea that somehow, like, if you are someone who wants to, your dream in life is to be a mom and be at home, like, that's not feminine. Like, there's no less feminism in that than your friend who is like made it to the top of the food chain and wants to have kids. Like, I think that's sort of what a lot of women in the past have been saying, is that there's no one way to be a feminist. It's just to believe that women are not less than, women deserve the right to choose any which way. And, for each of us, that's going to look a little different, because obviously we've navigated our own path and we can't help but, project that onto others. But it's tricky. It's like you find yourself in the sort of the dichotomy of like, you can be strong, but also like being a stay-at-home mom and nurturing kids is the best. Like, it's very hard to talk about things without and ignoring the gray area, because that's the meat of it right there in the middle.
My girls have definitely each said to me at different time periods, so like, what do you do? Like, you're just a mom, like, like, what do you do for work? And this was like, now my content creation and streams of income doing that obviously pay, like I joke, Ava's Starbucks bill. But I said to, like, they were like, well, what did you do before you had kids? It was almost like all you are is a mom. And I'm like, at that time I was like, well, I'm home now, but I could go back to the fashion industry or do this or do that. But like, they almost are kind of like, well, what do you do? Like, it was kind of like, because I wasn't at a corporate job every day, it was like in home with them, it was kind of like, oh, being a mom is like nothing.
Yeah,
Like,
we definitely have work to do as far as our opinions.
Yeah. So it was kind of like they both have definitely said it to me, and I had to like, explain things to them.
If a man was to be like, who's going to be like, well, that's all you do? You're just a dad. You're just you're just a content creator guy.
Yeah.
No, if someone was like, I'm a stay-at-home dad, everyone just is a round of applause. Wow, what did you sacrifice?
You having your successful YouTube, do people ever make comments to you like,
yes, yeah. Yeah, well, so yeah, being a content creator, I think it's funny as a woman that how many times people have assumed that I can do this because my husband makes money. but that is the assumption that how many I've hit that wall many times. Oh, you can do that because your husband makes the money. It must be nice to have a husband that pays the bills so that you can have that job.
I think sometimes women are our own worst enemies. We're not doing a
Yes.
lot to like move the needle, but
No,
yeah,
totally true.
it's a meaty topic. I certainly
Mhm.
talk about this all the time. We probably have to move on because
Yes.
it's a lot.
We'll go
but I
forever.
think yeah. And we don't have the solution, but I am hoping to get a hold of, I love having our new guests. I'm hoping to get a hold of my friend Chrissy. I'm going to make her pronounce her last name because I always fumble it. But she's now an educational consultant, but she used to be the headmaster at a local school. And I just feel like she might have an interesting take on just the idea of sort of gender roles and the intersection with feminism and sort of what she saw in the classroom. She is a parent also. So that I think will be a conversation that might lend itself to this. So that's who we're going to hear from next. But I refused to pronounce your last name on the podcast when I introduced you. I was like, I'm going to make her tell us her last name because you've told me 100 times and I always get it wrong.
You're
But
fine.
then maybe quickly say what your credentials, background, all of that. Because you're a rock star and you could talk to 100 things, but I just think your experience in a school and as a mom to boys, because I think we sometimes look at feminism as like a girl mom type thing. So those were two reasons that I was like, I think Chrissy would be really good for this. So
Chrissy Khachane is how you say the last name. And I always tell people not to worry about it as a sidebar because when I met my husband, I couldn't figure it out either. And that was before social media when you had to look up somebody's name in college, like in a book.
yes.
And I couldn't figure out the last name. And then I couldn't figure out the first name either. So I had to wait until I got back to class to see him again.
Can you record this for me? Yeah.
And so my background. So I started out many moons ago focusing on special education. And through that found a passion in literacy in particular and autism, which are very different, but they are two through lines throughout my entire career. After starting out in traditional public school, special education and regular education, decided to pursue a master's in literacy and another master's later on in clinical psychology with a focus on education. And since then have worked in public and independent schools in a variety of roles: classroom teacher, learning literacy specialist, went to the dark side in administration.
During COVID.
During COVID.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a journey. But I was in a special place, and there's lots of positives that I can say came out of that whole experience, even in the chaos of it. And now I work as an educational consultant, I say, and a non-legal advocate, supporting families navigate both independent and public school around inclusivity, around understanding learning and social emotional needs. And I'm really fortunate to have some school communities invite me in to work with their faculty and to help them develop programming around inclusivity with social, emotional, and academic learning.
That's amazing. And you're a mom to boys. You're a boy mom.
3 boys. I love being a boy mom, especially growing up. I'm one of 3 girls. So I think that's the other thing that's interesting. I have this I have my lived experiences like growing up in like girl world, and I was not very girlish in the traditional sense anyway. And then having boy world now and realizing, all of the things. It's not black and white in any way.
So we're going to make this quick, but I have 3 questions for you. I sent them to you yesterday, so they shouldn't be completely out of left field. And the first one is like a big, giant question that'll be hard to answer quickly, but we talked about what feminism meant to us, and it was sort of an interesting conversation because we're all different ages and, we're all parents, but did anything specific come up for you when you saw that, what feminism means to you?
What was interesting is a couple words came to mind: fairness, dignity, and opportunity. Like just the idea that opportunity, having opportunity be equal, I guess. So those are the 3 like big things that came to mind.
I love that. I am interested in, you don't have to answer this as a school principal, but I'm just thinking of sort of the highest role that you played in academia. How did that play out in your interaction with kids. So we talked about a lot of, how we as parents bring in feminism, but I'm curious what your thoughts are as far as feminism in sort of a larger scope or a more specific scope of academia. And I guess now you're a consultant. So either way you want to answer it.
No, I am going to twist the question a little bit, because I think the way, when I was reflecting on this, I'm fortunate. I was in education, like in the traditional sense, for over 20 years. And I was also I worked hard. It may be connected to some of what we're talking about, but I also became an administrator at 29. And so I think inherently, and I didn't have kids then. So how I was showing up then, and then how I've showed up once I became a mom, and then also as I have gotten older, it's really, there's been a range. So I think early on, and I think, or let me start with like a through line. So I think inclusive curriculum has always been a big passion of mine. I think inherently just because of my work in special education. And I think as I got older, as I became a leader, and it's still in a lot of instances a very male dominant, there were many rooms I was in at 29 and continued to be in where it's a lot of men who are making the decisions. And so I think part of what I was thinking about in those moments too is, how am I going to show up? How am I going to students seeing me show up? And what are they seeing when what comes out of those kind of situations? And I think that focus was much higher level. And then I want to say, I think where I'm happy to see that it's evolved to is that when I really, try to think about things beyond curriculum, try to think about things beyond sort of the experiences students were having. I think there's a lot of like the traditional, like, make sure STEM's available to everybody, make sure that there's opportunity for leadership that feels equal. I found that I have learned the power in some of it is in a lot of the smaller moments I would have with students one-on-one. Both boys and girls, whether it's something that they have a particular interest, and I was able to help support them in that and push it further. Students who hit a tricky moment and they were trying to navigate it, and it was letting everybody who was having a moment understand that vulnerability isn't a bad thing. So I think some of those things that are like underneath that idea of like fairness and dignity, it's helping humans be humans, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can I seep into the mom world now?
Yeah.
Okay, because so there's like years and years of experience with all like families being so generous and sharing their humans with me, and I get to play a role in it. And then there's these 3 kiddos that are my genetics, my husband's genetics, their grandparents' genetics, and I'm sure it's similar in your house. Like whatever the number of kids, like they could not all be more different than one another.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I don't often get asked to talk about this specifically. There's so many other things that come up that people are like, we want your expertise here, here, and here. And so part of the reason why I was excited is the school side of things. But in my own house, it has been like my own like human study with how these 3 boys are becoming and finding themselves. I think that some of the through lines are definitely like, we talk about our emotions, like, the whole like, and you relate to this, the whole like when you're in psychology or social work, like the name it to tame it.
Yes.
Okay. So like, that's like a mantra in our house in a way. But at the same time, not because it's about feminism, not because it's about being a boy or a girl, but just because like, that's what we do as humans. But then, for example, like I have a kiddo who one of his favorite activities to do he's crochets. Like that's his like calming moment. And that's where he has more woobly things all put together. We did one, he did one, and I did one, and then it just took off. Like it was something that he was curious about. And so I think I have found it just really exciting to help them lean into the things. And, I have a kiddo who loves to cook, like I think, and it's not because I'm saying like, oh, this is something that is gender specific. It's just leaning into their interests, leaning into the things that they're curious about. And then I think on the flip side, looking at each of them, there are things where they may feel more vulnerable in other areas. Mm-hmm. And so it's helping to support them to understand it's okay to feel vulnerable in those areas and how to lean into them still.
Yeah. I have found both in my own parenting, but also just as an observer of society, that we are more comfortable encouraging girls to step into roles that are more traditionally labeled as sort of more masculine, or, girl power, and girls can do anything. And I think we're still working on ways to really encourage and nurture our boys when they toggle into the realm of, quote, more sort of female, whether it's emotions or feelings or presentation or like getting your nails done. And I think the generation below us, the lines are even blurrier, which is just wonderful. I mean, you see boys that are, captain of the football team, but also showing up at the prom wearing like a skirt because they're like, it was cool. Why not? I am encouraged to see more of that, but that, I think we're in that generation that's straddling it a little bit. So with my boys, that is something I think about a lot.
The other thing I think I want to just acknowledge I thought about when you shared the topic and these questions in the school side of things real quickly is that I've thought about, and we talk about this in our house too, about the educational settings that my kids have been able to be in, either because of location of where we lived or where I have worked. And there's so much about it that also is about access, going back to that opportunity piece. And so I think it's one of those things that is, just by nature, I have one going into high school next year, and there are electives like cooking, or like human development and getting to, volunteer in a preschool setting that's within the high school. Like, I know that there's a privilege behind the situations that they've been in that, isn't necessarily consistently happening everywhere. And so I think I just acknowledge it because I know that there's a lot of parents who are working really hard for that opportunity piece. And, having conversations around how communities can do better, I think is also good.
Yes. Yes. And we're back. Let's move on to pits and peaks. Who wants to start? Megan, do you have a pit or a peak?
I have a peak. I had a fun experience at Bingo Loco. I know, Caitlin.
I didn't go, but you were down the street from my house and you could have come and visited me. So I'm a little salty.
Yeah, it was fun. And it was like, so they play music and then you check the box, and that's how like the bingo works. It's not
That's fun.
Yeah. So if like a Britney Spears song plays and it's on your card, that's how you check it. And they gave like one of the prizes was an air fryer. So
wait, do you have to listen to the whole song before you can go on to the next?
Just clips. They play clips and everyone's like dancing, and yeah, it was a fun time.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's your peak.
That's my peak.
Oh, okay.
Bingo Loco.
That was great. What about you, Caitlin? Pit or a peak?
It's a peak. Okay. You guys know my obsession with animals, right?
Sure.
Yes. I love to see animals in the wild. I have been driving the same road home from yoga for 4 years. It is known for this certain animal that lives out there, and I've never seen one until last night. I saw a bear. I just saw a big
that's a good
fat
one.
bear. He was just eating flowers next to a barn, and I almost missed it because I was busy looking at the lady who was stopped in the middle of the road thinking, is this a setup? Am I about to get murdered? And then I slowed down and looked at her, and she's like pointing, and I saw it. Here he was, and it was great.
Do you think it was the bear that was running around at the mall? Did you see that?
I saw that. West Farms Mall, Charlotte, where we were for the news thing.
I don't think he made it down all the way to Hampton.
What color was he?
He was a black bear.
Yeah.
Those ones are not as mean. They're friendly.
Yeah.
I think those you can startle and they'll run away.
Okay. He ended up getting startled because I turned my car around to go back and try to get to actually film it myself, and he was already gone. He went to go eat something else.
I thought you were going to say a deer, but a bear's even better.
I see deer all the time now. And this bear was like
old
bucket
news.
List. Bucket
That's
list.
Cool. That's cool. Callie, do you have a pit or a peak?
I had written down a peak, but I had a pit happen this morning. I had to take my dog so our dog is
damn dog.
We have like such a lemon of a dog. So she's got allergies,
Oh, Jesus
Yeah. And so she has to be on these, and she gets them so horrible that she scratches herself to the point of bleeding. So like we have to put her on medication.
Yeah.
And we were out of the medication, and now the vets have this like chokehold on you where you call for the medication. They're like,
No.
she's due for her physical. I'm like, it's a dog. So you take the dog in for the physical, and she's like due for some shot and then some other thing. And then I was out of flea stuff. So I was like, yeah, give me the flea stuff. And now the dog has chronic dry eye. I'm like, that sounds like a human disease.
Yeah.
So now and it's like, now I'm going home with doggy eye drops. I don't know.
my
Like
God.
$800 later.
Dog eye drops. You just have to like.
I'm not even sure. I didn't even ask. I was like, just put it in the bag and let me get out of here. I just want my allergy medicine. The dog is itching herself. She's bleeding. I'm like, just give me, I just want to get out of here with allergy medicine. But they're like, oh, let me tack on this blah, blah,
Yes.
blah, blah, whatever. So anyways, that was my pit.
Wait, Callie, all I'm picturing is that video clip. We have to share it where Olive's like in the morning, like sitting in front of the TV. Right?
That's
And
why
the
she has
eyes,
dry eyes.
Maybe she had dry eyes then, and you just
Apparently
didn't know it
has
yet.
chronic dry eyes. Yep. Just
Oh,
one more
God.
thing. I've got like 8 bottles and pills, and this dog has more things than my 4 children combined. So
Yeah.
That's fun.
anyways, yeah.
Well, I have a pit too. We just got back from spring break. It's that time of year in Connecticut when we can finally start focusing on the gardens and the plants. So I was outside just checking on things, and I walked out on our lawn. Listen, this is not the chapter of my life where I've ever really given a shit about our lawn. It's not been great. It is so embarrassingly gross right now. The deer have eaten it. There's like weeds that are not just like crabgrass, like weeds that need to be in the woods type things like popping up. And it's so bad that like now I have to figure out how do you fix a lawn, and that is a community of people that I don't need to be like listening to because it's just obsessive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's no gray, speaking of no gray area, like there's no one who's like, I just want my lawn to be okay.
Yeah,
Everyone wants
decent.
it to be like
Yeah.
perfect. So I fear that I've opened a can of worms that I don't really want to be opening, but I have to. It's too gross. So that's that.
There's like the whole new movement of people who are having like they're letting themselves have wild lawns for the like bees, and it's supposed to be good for the ecosystem. Listen, if I were unmarried or something unfortunate happens to Michael and I'm alone, I will just do that. I'll be like, yeah, it's good for the bees because I have just no desire to do anything in a lawn.
Yeah, but your kids are outside. What is it, 10,000 hours a year? You need a lawn.
They just can go through they can pollinate with the bees or whatever.
Okay.
My parents just got in a fight about that, by the way, with the bees. My mom wanted my dad to stop his treatments because of the bees, and my dad was like, over my dead body.
I know. I'm telling you, the
fertilizing.
bees have a real good PR team because they are.
They do. We're all very worried about them.
The bees and the bats are really front of mind for a lot of folks. All right, guys. Well, this I feel like has been a rocky episode. It hasn't been our smoothest, but we got there. We started with animals. We ended with animals.
Damn dogs.
Yeah, the damn dogs. That's going to be the title of our episode. Damn dogs. Thank you to everyone who is always so sweet about leaving us comments on both our social media and YouTube and even on the website. That's how we got the whole topic for today's episode. So thank you. And until next time, everyone. Bye.
The things I planned, the things I would say no